Hello again. By the early 14th century, Catharism was supposed to have disappeared, been destroyed, annihilated. The crusades, the Albigensian crusade, had crushed them. The Catholic Church and the state had hunted them down. In France, all the perfecti were gone. And yet, there was one still wandering through the villages of the Pyrenees, still instructing, still teaching the people there the old faith, Catharism. His name was Guillaume Bélibaste. And to the Catholic Church he was public enemy number one. And they did everything they could to catch him and put an end to him. Guillaume was born around 1280 in a small village in the mountains. Let me check the name, it's a little bit tricky. Cubier's Sir Noble. His family were quite wealthy and he had quite a good education by the standards of the day. Guillaume Bélibaste lived during the final decades of the Cathar movement. It had been virtually extinguished, and what did remain had actually gone underground. They were still practicing their faith, but in secret. In the history books, we are usually regaled with the heroic stories of great battles of kings, queens and emperors, religious wars. But amongst the pages, every so often, there's a story of an individual, someone who did not tread the normal line, someone who, no matter what was placed in front of them, imprisonment, torture, the threat of death, they refused to budge. They keep the faith. And certainly Guillaume Bélibaste was one of those people. This then is his story on what knowledge, historical knowledge, that we do have of the man. As a young man, when he was quite hot-headed, as some Southern Europeans tend to be. But he got into a violent quarrel with a shepherd, and the result was that he killed the shepherd.
I will kill you for what you just said!
And now he was a fugitive, running from the law. So he left France and headed across the Pyrenees to Aragon. There, where he could feel safe. But he himself took up the profession of being a shepherd in order to stay in the hills and keep away from the law. But while he was there, his life took a decisive turn, because he met some Cathar Perfecti, and which was these were some of the final Cathars in France, and there was somewhat of a resurgence of the Cathar movement from the the Author brothers. Anyway, some perfecti instructed him over a period of time and taught him the Cathar, and he eventually became a Cathar Perfecti.
A person can only be truly free when they learn to love unconditionally.
Now the Perfecti were meant to live highly spiritual lives of purity, celibacy. They were vegetarians, and they were to act in the manner of how they lived as, well, living examples to others. Guillaume, we'd have to call him an imperfect perfecti. His heart and soul were in the right place, but he was still a very human being. And the strict life of being a perfecti did not come easy to him at all. After some time as a perfecti, Bellibaste returned to France and taught and preached amongst the villages amongst the Pyrenees. The details are scanty, but he was caught by the church and imprisoned, but whatever happened, he did manage to escape, and back again it was over the Pyrenees to the relative safety of Aragon. In Aragon he felt that he was safe and he could continue on with his life. When he was in France, there was an incident which is recorded in the book Montelieu. It's a wonderful book if you're interested in all the details of shepherds and their lives. Guillaume, it seems, got involved with a young, attractive lady by the name of Ramonda Piqueur. I'm not sure about her surname. And unfortunately, but which happens quite naturally, she became pregnant to him. So luckily, Guillaume had a wonderful friend, who a lifelong friend, in fact, and his name was Pierre Arnauld, and he persuaded, so he must have had some powers of persuasion, but he persuaded his friend to marry Ramonda, and this by protect his reputation. And his friend did that. But after a few weeks, the marriage was annulled and Ramonda was back with Guillaume. The lovers were reunited. Now this, of course, is going on while he was a Cathar Perfecti, which was a real no-no. And in fact, if that happens, normally you could lose your status and you would have to receive the consolamentum at some point in time. But remember, this was right at the very last stages of Catharism, and it was nothing like it of its former self. So we say the strict rules had been relaxed, well, certainly at least for Guillaume. In 1321, Guillaume was still living and teaching in Aragon, and felt himself quite secure. But a person that he knew, and whose mother was burnt as a Cathar, his name was Arnaud Seeker, and he persuaded Guillaume to come back to France and teach over there, and he said he'd be welcomed and he'd be secure from the Church and the Inquisition. Eventually this Arnaud Seeker did persuade Guillaume to return to France, as he said there were people there desperate for his ministry. But it was a trap, and this Arnaud Seeker, we call him today we would call him a double agent. And once Guillaume was back in France, the church authorities grabbed him and he was placed in the hands of the Inquisition. Eventually he was taken to the small village, still in the Pyrenees, of Villerouge-Terminais. There he was interrogated, tortured by the Inquisition, and they wanted him to recant his beliefs, to give away his Cathar beliefs, renounce his beliefs. But he refused.
Recant your false Cathar beliefs, or you will die.
So his fate was sealed. He knew he was going to die. Given his past, where he killed a guy in a fight, and his love affair with Ramonda, and there were possibly others. History doesn't tell us this. But what we do know is that he refused to renounce his faith, to recant his beliefs, his Cathar beliefs. And it is said that he walked calmly and bravely to the faggots, to the things, the wood that was piled up, ready to burn him. And it is there that he said one of the more famous sentences in history. After 700 years, the laurel will again go green.
In 700 years, the laurel will again grow green.
In Occitan, it's El Cap des Sedans, Pedrigo the Laurel. Pardon my accent. Guillaume Bélibaste, on that autumn morning at 8 o'clock, died bravely. But his story lives on. I've written a short poem. Hope you enjoy it.
Guillaume Bélibaste, he once confided in me. In 700 years we Cathars, we will rewrite history. In 700 years the laurel will again grow green. Catharism once again will grace the world scene. It was in Villerouge-Terminais set you free. In his life he experienced love of both body and soul. For we need to love and be loved to keep the soul whole. It was a bright fine day in August in the year of 1321. Guillaume Bélibaste was burnt under an early sun. He was last perfecti to die in that land of Offsar, when the Inquisitors lit the flames at 8 o'clock. Perfect perfecti, who knew how to die. For he recanted not from torture, flames he did not cry. He kept the faith as well, he did not prophesy in vain, when he foretold the children of light will return again.
In a strange way, his story lives on because of the Inquisition, which was the final nail in the coffin and destroyed Catharism, although it took them 200 years. But they have the inquisitorial records, which in France are free to be open to the public, not so in the Vatican. And in Guillaume Bélibaste's case, it was the Inquisitor, Jacques Fournier, who later became Pope Benedict the 13th. And it's through his meticulous records, when he interrogated the villagers at Montelieu, there's virtually nothing left of that village in today's time, in the present day. But it's through his records of what happened in that village that we heard about the exploits of Guillaume Bélibaste. So I don't know what you think of him. How does one say when there's a good man or a bad man or a good woman or a bad woman? What do you think? Some people say the Cathars got what they deserved. They were heretics. Guillaume Bélibaste's story, with its ebb and flow, its drama, its romance, still thrills people today. In the twilight years of a persecuted faith, Guillaume Bélibaste, we could consider as probably the last witness. But his story of murder, romance, flight, rehabilitation, his brave death, still stands out amongst the many pages of history. Bye for now. Talk soon.